Your boss sends you an email.
Hey, can we talk for a few minutes?
No context, no agenda, just.
Do you have a few minutes to talk?
What's the first story your brain tells you? Welcome to the Prime for ADHD podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Toole, ADHD coach and educator for women with ADHD who look like they've got it together, but feel like they're falling apart. Inside this podcast, I'm sharing all my best, simple, brain-friendly strategies and insights that have helped women, especially those in midlife, better understand the way their ADHD exists in this stage of life so they can get their shit together or keep it together. Whether you're a woman with ADHD or care about one, you'll walk away with new insights. If you're a capable woman with ADHD who's done using ADHD as an excuse and done living with how hard it feels, you're in the right place. Get ready for a new kind of existence. Welcome back to the Prime for ADHD podcast. I'm Andrea Toole, ADHD coach and educator. This is season 2, episode 9. Over the last few episodes, I've talked about disclosure and how ADHD affects our relationships. Today, I'm talking about hierarchy. Because at work, misunderstandings don't just lead to hurt feelings. They affect your reputation, your opportunities, your income, and your influence. And that changes the stakes. Before I dive in, one quick note. If you're listening before March 17th, 2026, I'm speaking at the Beyond Corporate Burnout Summit. It's for high-achieving women leaders who are still performing at a high level, but quietly wondering how long they can sustain the pace. My session looks at why a high capability doesn't protect you from burnout. I'll talk about the difference between capacity and potential, and why planning your life from your potential instead of your capacity creates chronic strain. I'll also look at how effort often gets used to compensate for structural design flaws, and why being capable of something doesn't automatically mean you're obligated to keep doing it. All attendees receive my capacity gap audit to identify where they may be overextending, and VIP attendees also receive a bonus audio to help them interpret the results. Details are in the show notes. Now, let's talk about power. There's a popular narrative that ADHD is a superpower. There's also data showing higher rates of job instability and burnout for people with ADHD. Both can be true. See, ADHD traits can be powerful assets in some environments and deeply destabilizing in others. Context matters. Structure matters. Power matters. ADHD is not automatically a gift, nor is it automatically a deficit. It's a nervous system interacting with a system, and professional hierarchy is one of those systems. First, I want to discuss hierarchy in ADHD when you report up. Let's go back to that random meeting request. If your first thought is, am I in trouble? You're not alone. Think about what happens in your body in that moment. Just drop in. Think about it. Your brain starts replaying the last few days in these situations. Did I miss something? Did I forget an email? Did someone complain? What did I do that I would have been caught doing? And suddenly, you're not thinking about the work you need to do today. You're thinking about what? Defending yourself. That's what power does to interpretation. A lot of people with ADHD describe a shockwave of panic when someone in a position of authority asks for a meeting without context. Rejection sensitivity is talked about a lot in ADHD spaces. It's not an official DSM diagnosis, but the emotional intensity people describe is very real. Same goes with imposter syndrome. They go hand in hand. And hierarchy amplifies that. When someone has the power to evaluate you, to affect your income, your role, your future, your nervous system reads that as a potential threat. Now, layer ADHD on top of that. Executive function differences. A history of being corrected. Misreading tone. Years of being told you're careless, unfocused, not meeting expectations, not doing enough. Many people with ADHD grew up hearing some version of the same feedback over and over, such as, pay attention, try harder, stop interrupting, sit still, the question of, why can't you finish things? And do I have to finish your homework for you? Those messages don't disappear when you become an adult with a job. In fact, they're so ingrained in you that your inner child wants to protect you, and those stories keep coming back. Those messages, they're still sitting in the background when someone with authority asks to talk. Some of you might have had a visceral reaction while I was going through that list of qualities just now. And I understand that because some of this comes from personal experience. Under hierarchy, behavior gets moralized. Lateness is framed as lack of respect. Directness gets labeled as aggression. And if you're a woman, there's just a whole other set of baggage in relation to that. Inattention is read as disengagement. Research consistently shows that ADHD traits are often interpreted as character flaws rather than neurological differences. That's the gap, the effort-perception gap. Someone with ADHD might spend twice as long organizing a project plan. They might reread an email 5 times before sending it because they're worried about the tone or sending it to the wrong people. They might over-prepare for a meeting because they know they struggle to retrieve information on the spot. None of that information is visible. What the manager sees is the missed detail, the late report, or the moment you seem distracted in a meeting. You might be working twice as hard to stay organized, stay composed, stay professional, but it goes unnoticed. And over time, that gap creates strain. Now let's talk about instability. Adults with ADHD are significantly more likely to have been fired and more likely to leave jobs voluntarily. That stat often gets used as proof that ADHD equals unreliability. But there's another way to look at it. When there's a long-term mismatch between your brain and the structure you're operating in, strain builds up. Some environments amplify time blindness. Some amplify task switching overload. Some amplify sensory fatigue, and some environments crush autonomy. Leaving isn't always about impulsivity. Sometimes it's self-preservation. And sometimes getting fired comes with a wave of relief, with or without distress. You can be upset about being fired and still feel relief at the same time. Again, more than one thing can be true at the same time. There's a difference between entitlement and chronic executive strain. Most of my listeners, Gen X and elder millennials, they know that sometimes you have to tolerate discomfort. Sometimes you just have to do the thing. Just do it. The real question is this. Are you tolerating growth? Or are you tolerating a system that keeps grinding you down? Now let's talk about masking. Masking is the high-effort performance of professionalism. It works. It works until it doesn't. I'm trying to decide where to put the emphasis there. Masking works until it doesn't. For many high-functioning women with ADHD, entire careers are built on compensation. Compensation can look very impressive from the outside. Staying late so you can finish work in a quiet office, rewriting meeting notes because you're worried you missed something, saying yes to projects you don't actually have the capacity for because you want to prove your value. The outside world sees commitment. Inside, you're constantly managing the gap between how your brain works and how the system expects you to work. And here's how it leads to burnout. First, you compensate. Then, the symptoms intensify because you are exhausted. Then, the mask starts slipping. And eventually, the system collapses. That collapse can look like suddenly quitting a job or burnout that comes out of nowhere that's so intense that you can't keep going. But it didn't come out of nowhere, did it? It accumulated. It's worse if you haven't been taking care of yourself. I built my Prime system for ADHD management after burning out at a job I was fired from but wanted to quit a lot sooner. By the end of week 1, I knew it was a bad fit. The stress built. Being in a toxic environment and constantly staying late to get work done when it was quiet left me without the energy to take care of myself. So when I talk about those 4 steps of burnout, compensation, symptoms intensifying because you're exhausted, the mask slipping, and the system collapsing, I'm talking from personal experience, and I know other people who have experienced it or are experiencing it as well. For me, it became a cycle and a cautionary tale. Relief comes from understanding the patterns. You may have been compensating inside a system that wasn't designed for your brain. Power changes interpretation. But power doesn't only work downward. Sometimes you are the one holding it. Now I'm going to talk about hierarchy and ADHD when you're the one in the position of authority. That is, when you're the manager. Leadership doesn't remove ADHD. In fact, sometimes it amplifies it. Often it amplifies it. It's a more exposed role. It's harder to fly under the radar. When you're an individual contributor, people mostly evaluate your output. When you're leading a team, people evaluate how you communicate, how consistent you are, how accessible you are, how predictable your expectations are, and whether they feel safe bringing problems to you. That's a completely different kind of cognitive load and a lot more executive function demand. In fact, some people who are offered managerial positions, they have a sense of this and they turn them down, or some people who step into managerial positions then decide that they want to go back to being a team member because of all of this. When you're a manager, there's more visibility, more responsibility, more executive demand, and more reputational weight. The same traits that helped you rise, vision, speed, adaptability, can create conflict when you're managing a team. ADHD leaders often overcompensate in different ways. For example, micromanaging because uncertainty feels intolerable. Avoiding difficult conversations because emotional intensity is draining. shifting your tone under stress without realizing it, neglecting administrative follow-through because it's mentally draining. Understanding ADHD doesn't remove responsibility. It clarifies it. You're still accountable for your tone, expectations, and follow-through. I read a post on LinkedIn recently from a man in his early 50s who manages a team and also has ADHD. Actually, I read it the other day. He wrote about a moment where he realized he hadn't gone deep enough on a project and had made some assumptions that let his peers down. And a few things he said about that stood out to me. One, he said, and I'm quoting, "When you're in a leadership role, your instinct is usually to hide the feelings." Two, he said, "Being a leader doesn't mean being perfect. It means being the first one to admit when you've missed the mark and the most committed one to fixing it." I thought that was such a great line. And three, the third thing that stood out to me was how he handled the situation. He didn't pivot. He didn't deflect. He sat down with his team and said, "I didn't go deep enough on this. That's on me." That's leadership, not perfection. It's accountability. When you're in a leadership role, people don't expect you to be flawless. They expect you to own the moment when you miss the mark and then correct the course. All leaders need to do that. For leaders with ADHD, that moment can trigger a lot of internal noise, imposter syndrome, self-criticism, the urge to explain or over-justify. But the most stabilizing thing you can do in a hierarchy is often the simplest. Tell the truth about what happened and take responsibility for fixing it. Speed is one of the traits that often helps people with ADHD rise into leadership, but speed without depth can create blind spots. As a manager with ADHD, female or male, doesn't matter, you don't get a free pass, but you do get a much better understanding of what you're managing. As a leader, this is also where structure matters. When expectations are clear, when meetings have agendas, when people aren't guessing what success looks like, performance improves for everyone, and especially for people with ADHD. It makes the entire team look good. And this is what creates psychological safety. Psychological safety isn't just being nice. It's not a luxury or about coddling employees. Psychological safety improves performance, which again makes the entire team look good. When employees aren't burning energy by masking, they have more energy to produce, and that includes you. Makes sense, right? Leadership makes the mask a lot harder to keep on. You can't hide inconsistency behind busyness forever, but you can design things differently. You can delegate strategically. You can be explicit about expectations. You can share meeting agendas ahead of time. You can separate behavior from character when you're evaluating performance. That is power used consciously. Understanding hierarchy doesn't make you oversensitive, it makes you strategic. You are not powerless in professional systems, and ADHD is not a free pass, it's information. Information reduces misunderstandings. It cuts down on confusion. If this episode resonated, follow or subscribe to Prime for ADHD wherever you're listening. If you're on Apple, consider leaving a rating or review. It helps more than you might think. And share this with someone who's navigating professional power right now. If you're listening before March 17th and burnout under sustained performance feels familiar, join me at the Beyond Corporate Burnout Summit. Details are in the show notes. Thanks for listening. You've got this, and I've got you.